Thinking about buying a CNC and you don't know where to start?
Well, we're going to create a checklist of questions so you can find the right CNC and software for you. I'm Leighton from Carveco.
And I'm Stone from Onefinity.
Okay, before we get too technical and help you find what you need to answer some questions yourself. You may know the answer to these, or you may need to go away and consider them.
These questions are: what projects do you want to do? What type of materials do you want to use? How much time do you have? How much space do you have? And what's your budget? So let's dive in.
So what projects do you want to make? Knowing what projects you want to make on your CNC is the first step to determine what CNC and software package that you're after, isn't it, Stone?
Sure. I mean, that helps you determine, do you want to do 2D or 3D? Do you want to do something larger or smaller scale? Maybe you want to do a little bit of everything. So you want something maybe in the middle so that you can do 2D, 3D, so you can make signs, but you can also do reliefs.
I suppose also repeatability as well.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're just doing the same product all the time, or you're doing just a broad range of things from, say, brass plaques to big, huge.
Sure. There are people that are making, products like you're batching things out, and there's sometimes that you're making a one-off. So it just depends on what your business is based on. Another question to ask yourself is, what type of materials are you wanting to machine? Some materials are not going to be as easy to machine on some machines, whereas some machines will handle just about every material without a problem.
Yeah, so you have different types of machines for different materials. I mean, you've got specific, say, stone cutting machines, not this stone. You've also got specific, say, ice carving machines. The metal ones are more rigid. And then you've got all-rounder machines that will just basically cut all different types of materials.
Another thing to consider is how the different drive systems will affect what you're machining. Some drive systems are going to be great for certain materials, but will be awful for other materials. Another thing to consider is, what is the machine constructed of? Is it made of wood, plastic, metal, a combination of those, or just one thing?
Also, you need to choose some CNC software that allows you to visualize the actual finished product. So you have a simulation in there. With this, you can see what it's going to look like, but you can also send it to potential customers or existing customers so they can actually see what the finished product's going to look like. So how much time do you have? Are you going to go into this full time, or is this just an evening or a weekend hobby? There are two parts to this question, Stone. One of them is if you're a hobbyist, and the second one is if you're approaching this sort of more in a business sort of sense and you want to do multiple projects. Now, if you are going into it as a business sort of sense, doing multiple projects, then I suppose having the fastest machine that you can possibly afford is probably the best option, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think if you're doing a business with a CNC, you want it to be efficient. You want to be able to crank out your products as fast as possible, but you also don't want to sacrifice any of the quality.
You also need efficient software as well, which will generate the machining faster, which will save you time in the long run.
Absolutely.
Now, if you're approaching this as a hobbyist, then do you really want the machine to be going like all evening or all weekend? It's entirely up to you.
The next thing to consider is, how much space do you have to work with? Where are you planning on putting this CNC? Is it going to be in a garage, a shed, a small room in your house? And does it have the capability to fit through the doors and spaces that you need to get it through? So a lot of things to consider with that is, do you want a smaller machine because you're doing smaller projects? Or do you want a bigger machine because you're doing bigger projects? And even with those, you can think about, does the big machine fold up, or is it easy to disassemble and move? Or is the small machine light enough and easy enough to move from one place to another? This is a really good point in choosing between a desktop machine or a larger format machine like our Elite Foreman here.
Now, you guys, I've seen people put them on the walls and stuff, haven't they? The Onefinity.
Yeah, so you can put them on the wall. You can obviously fold up the table and roll it out And they're super easy to take apart if they won't fit through a small enough door. So you can take it in small pieces and put it back together in just a few minutes.
I'd like to see someone put it upside down. That would be quite fun.
That would be pretty cool.
Finally, what's your budget? Don't tell me $10. Now, what you want is a CNC and software that will grow with your needs. So you need to look at upgradability as regards to the CNC machine. What's that saying that people say, Stone?
Buy your second machine first.
Okay. Now, you will still want to upgrade, because everyone does. But when you're looking at software as well, consider how much it costs to use. Is there a monthly or annual subscription cost? Can you upgrade and downgrade based on your needs? Can you buy it outright?
The last thing to think about is additional costs such as your bits, your materials, your laptop, and other things like dust extraction. Bits, your material are things that you're going to use and are going to be used up over time, so you're going to have to replace them. So those are the questions you need to answer for yourself. What type of projects do you want to do? What type of materials do you want to use? How much time do you have? How much space do you have available? And what is your budget?
Now, maybe you know the answers to these already, maybe not. But before you speak to a CNC or software provider, first have a think about those questions, because it means that you'll be able to get the most out of your time with them and get the answers that you personally need. So now let's look at the questions to be asking those suppliers.
Okay, now it's going to get a little more technical, but these are the things that you need to be aware of before making your purchase.
Okay, so the checklist of questions when purchasing a CNC and software is: what's the CNC made out of? What drive system does it have? How big is the machine? How long does it take to set up? How fast can it carve? How much does it cost? Are there any additional costs? How easy is it to upgrade? What support is available? Is it tried and tested? So let's dive in.
So now that you've considered what type of projects and materials you want to use, you want to make sure that the CNC that you choose is right for you, especially what it's made out of. So there are machines made out of plywood, there are machines made out of plastic, metal, a combination of those, or anything else. So what's important about this is the rigidity of the machine. If you're cutting metals, you're going to want an all-metal composition machine. Whereas if you're cutting plastics or soft woods, a smaller plastic and metal or plastic and wood machine might get the job done for you.
Also price. So
Absolutely.
if you're doing building a plywood machine, that's going to cost you considerably less than a metalworking machine.
Another thing to consider is the weight of that machine. If you are not capable of lifting an all-metal machine, it might be easier to go with a smaller and less rigid machine.
Another question to research off the back of knowing what materials you're going to be machining, you'll want to take into consideration the drive systems.
Absolutely. There's 4 main types of drive systems that are used on hobby CNCs. The first is going to be a belt drive system. The pro of this is it's very inexpensive, but the con is that it's going to take more maintenance and adjustments over time. There's also lead screws, which are pretty inexpensive, but you're going to lose some accuracy with those. The next would be a rack and pinion system, which allows you to have a larger and longer axis, but you're not going to have the accuracy that you might have with the ball screw. With the ball screw, it's extremely accurate, but you're limited to a certain length of your axis, and it's going to be a little bit more expensive. Finally, in order to make sure that you can do the projects you want, you also need to make sure that the machine bed is large enough and fits inside of the space you have. You'll want to know the size of the machine's bed, but also the exterior footprint of the machine. Will it fit into your workshop? Will it fit in through your doorways or garage?
So a lot of it's common sense, like does it fit your ideas, your project ideas? Let's say for instance you're making cabinets. It would be pointless to buy a tiny machine because it just wouldn't fit on there. So a lot of it is to do with whatever it is that you're making. So how long does it take to set up? Different machines and software take different times to set up. And if you don't have much time and you just want to get on with it, then this is something that you may want to consider. So how long or complex is the job to set up the machine? Let's say, for instance, this machine, it took me a couple of hours. There's another machine that we have that took me 2 weeks to do. And also, have you got the skills to actually do this?
Another thing to think of is how the software is set up. When you're setting up your machine in some software, it may just be a drop-down where you select your machine, whereas others will require you to manually input all of the settings. Continuing on with the topic of time, you also have to consider how much time you have available for design and machining. Some machines may be able to cut something out, but it's going to take a lot longer than on other machines. So taking into consideration the rigidity, drive system, and the ease of use with all of the machine and the software is very important.
So during COVID, I had 2 small machines in my basement, and I was doing some relief carving. Now, one of these reliefs took probably about 14 hours or something to machine. It was only a really small relief, and it was actually carving during dinner time. And let's just say that my wife weren't very happy because it was just screaming. So that's another thing to take into consideration. Now, going back to thinking about what budget that you have, one of the most obvious questions, how much does it cost for both the CNC and the software? So for the software, you've got to ask yourself whether you would rather have a subscription, so where you pay a small monthly fee, that includes bug fixes and new features, or whether you'd rather pay a lump sum and get a perpetual license where you can just use it in perpetuality. Is there a fixed term contract? Are there any discounts available? So if you're a veteran or a teacher, is there anything available to you?
Also, don't forget to ask if there are going to be any additional costs that come with the CNC or the software that you'll be using. There are things like support, maintenance, extra or replacement parts, as well as consumables like your end mills and your plywood or other materials that you might be using.
There's also the computer to run the software. Now, a lot of people scrimp on the computer. They think that the machine's the most important thing, and then get like a really low spec computer, which will not run the software. So make sure that you get a computer that's decent and it meets the system requirements of the software. And you've also got to think about the operating system as well that you're going to run on that. Also, if you want to build your CNC business or hobby over time, you want to know how easy is it to upgrade. So why would you want to upgrade your CNC or software? Now, you may basically want to have a machine that's more accurate or a larger processing area, let's say, for instance. And then with the software, maybe you want to create something that's a little bit different to the capabilities that you already have in your current software package. So as we mentioned earlier, what you want is the CNC and the software to grow with you. As Stone mentioned earlier, buy your second machine first. Now, you may even need to grow that afterwards, depending on what you want to do. And also software-wise, you may need to, basically, let's say, for instance, you haven't purchased the right software or it doesn't do what you want it to do to start with. And then you need to purchase some other software or a different product, and then you've got a whole new learning curve. And not only have you got the cost, but you've also got the time in actually learning that product. So having a software and CNC that's going to be easy to upgrade is going to be extremely useful for you.
Finally, we have a few additional things that you'll want to consider. First is what support is available to you as the user. So what CNCs are supported within the software? Is it going to be a drop-down like we said earlier, or is it going to be something you'll have to manually input? Along with that, why is support important for beginners? So you want to think about what you're going to need to help you succeed in your personal hobby or your business. Along with that, you also want to think about what type of support channels are available. Are there YouTube channels? Are there forums? Are there user groups? All of those resources that are going to help you better yourself and your business as you're growing. You also want to think about how long you're going to receive that support for. Is that something that is a limited term, or is that for the life of the machine and the software? And the last thing to think about with this is how big the community around this software or this machine is, because those are typically the most helpful people when you're learning.
So the last, but maybe the biggest question of all, is it tried and tested? So you want to look out for testimonials of the product, reviews, have a look at communities, so say Facebook groups of say the company's page and also user groups. Look at social media, look on YouTube, Instagram. Look for people making projects with that machine or software. So there we have it. That's your checklist for buying a CNC and the software to go with it.
Getting these questions answered will put you in the best position possible when you're shopping for your CNC machine and the software to go with it.
We hope that this has been useful. Let us know in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe.
To find out more about Carveco and Onefinity, check out the links in the description below. We'll see you next time.
Bye. I just had massive deja vu, man.
Just go for it.
Massive. Even this, what I'm just saying, that I had massive deja vu. Weird.
Still happening?
Yeah, it's really weird. So for the software, the software.
Are you planning putting on blah 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 blah? That's what I do when I'm at home and I'm by myself. I do it all the time. Oh man.
So finally, what's your budget? All that you could hear at dinner time was like. I'm still getting deja vu. I was watching a program where it was saying that deja vu was a glitch in the simulation.